Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Jessica, please read roll call.
Clark,
Here.
Corvino,
Here.
Ermeling,
Here.
Easter,
Here.
Wyland.
Do we have a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, July 22nd, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Easter, second by Ermeling. Any more, or motions been approved? All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Oppose? Motion passed. So we have one public comment here from Jim Hensel.
Can I wait until some of the agenda items, please?
Sure.
If you have emails or texts, now would be
Yeah.
the time,
I guess.
unless they're specific to
They
an
are
agenda.
specific to agenda item number 6. Next. Discussion and possible action on potential Weston Aquatic Center Municipal Center partnerships.
So this is meant to be a very broad discussion. Is this something the committee, the village would be open to? Additional discussion regarding a possible partnership with Rothschild Schofield Aquatic Center, Rothschild Schofield municipalities. So it's supposed to be just that. Do we want to continue discussion? Or start discussion, I should say.
So, has Rothschild come to us sort of, I'm just gonna go with the word officially about the items in the packet? Like have they, what I'm essentially asking is have they had their discussion prior to coming to us?
So the city of Schofield came to Rothschild because they're, the pool that they have is
Yep.
a joint venture, and expressed that they have several capital improvements and expenses that are coming up, and would they consider some sort of alternative? So that was a meeting that was held, they have a separate pool commission.
Yep.
So that was held with that pool commission. And so Ryan said they had this discussion. Ryan is the administrator for Rothschild, and he said, would you be willing to have a conversation with your Parks and Rec about if we did a partnership? So it is still something that would have to go back to the village of Rothschild and to the city of Schofield, to their common council and to their board of trustees. That conversation has not been held there.
Then I would, I mean, I'm a former Rothschild lifeguard at that pool. And so I would say, it seems like this, you know, if the question is just if we're open to having that conversation, sure, that I'm obviously open to having that conversation. But if it sort of goes beyond that and kind of the nuts and bolts or the, you know, strategic ideas behind that, until they come to us, come to you guys officially, I think that I think there's a cart and there's horse, and we might be putting one in front of the other. And I mean, yeah, if it just comes down to us administering their pool, that sounds great. But again, I think, yeah, this is putting something in front of the cart, or whatever that metaphor is.
It would not be administering their pool. Their pool would not exist anymore.
Oh, that's the deal.
There would be one municipal pool for the municipality.
That was gonna be my
Oh,
question.
Yeah,
that's a totally different deal.
there would not, yes, there would be one municipal pool that we would share in jointly. There would not be, and it would be the Weston Municipal Aquatic.
Because
Okay.
when we were building our pool,
That's a totally different
the
deal.
whole idea was we wanted Schofield Rothschild to come in and work and build it with us. And they didn't want to, and then we weren't gonna build a pool, and then we went to referendum. And 600 people said yes.
But, yeah.
And so, I mean, the original concept was it was going to be a municipal. So I guess I would, because when you were saying about that, and I'm going, I don't think they've done a lot of repairs on their pool, or minimal amount, and I'm not sure I want to take on their pool when we're dealing with our own issues, you know? So,
And
okay,
Dino's phrasing of the nuts and bolts of this not figured out. If the
Yeah.
question was asked, and I get, there's always that causality dilemma within governance. It's a public meeting and it has to be, and so there's always like, we did not come with a plan because we want to talk about the plan. So, but then sometimes it's like, what's the plan? Well, we didn't talk about the plan. So we're sort of in that moment where if we're open to continuing the conversation, then we would share that back and start that in a more formal process.
But, so I would, then I'd want to follow up with that. If they choose to close their pool, that would be their decision entirely, right?
If they would, yes, discontinue, I think that this piece would allow them to form a partnership where there would still be access to a pool. That's not to say that people from Rothschild and Schofield don't come to the pool now, right? Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that they do.
So then, okay, again, I'm just gonna keep saying the cart and the horse thing. It seems like Rothschild and Schofield have a decision in front of them if they want to maintain their pool operations. And then that is entirely their discussion to have. And everything, if they decided to, I can't imagine they would say something like, well, we'll keep the pool open if you guys say no to some sort of partnership. I mean, it seems like they're gonna keep the pool open or close the pool based on whatever internal discussion they have.
Potentially. I think the other opportunity though is if there is a partnership, understanding that then there might be a resident rate that would be for all of those municipalities. There might be some assistance that would come for improvements to the pool because it would be more of a joint effort.
Okay.
So
That
like
makes sense to me.
Schofield
Yep.
pays in a dollar amount
Yep.
to help, then maybe Schofield and Rothschild would provide some assistance to the overall operation of the pool with the understanding that their residents get a resident.
Can't believe they closed the pool.
I know. Well, it's not at
Right,
this
yeah,
moment,
yeah,
it's
right,
we're throwing out the question.
Yeah, I think it would be a big shame. I think we would have a lot of backlash from the community. I do have a couple of emails here, if you would like me to start there. Let's see. Shannon Grabco, 6213 Fenton Street, Weston. Weston won't have room for all the people if they close Rothschild. That's an increased risk of drownings and harder for lifeguards to see. You either need to make a slight increase in admission or season passes. Honestly, a lot of moms prefer the Rothschild pool for their little kids because the pool gets gradually deeper versus Weston's where the depth is not gradual. Additionally, Weston is overrun with teenagers and it's hard to keep track of littles. I never go there. Rothschild is a nicer environment. Jen Hours from 5311 Linda Street, Weston. I haven't lived in the village for long, just under a year. This is our first summer here, and my 6-year-old daughter couldn't wait to go to the pool. She had a 14-year-old babysitter this summer, and they spent several days at the Rothschild pool without my supervision. I went one time to see the facility and observe the staff. I didn't need to be with them any more than that one time. The place is small enough for young children. It has that old school pool feel. The staff is wonderful. I felt really secure about leaving them there for the afternoon to have fun. I wouldn't take them to Weston Aquatic Center. It's too big, overwhelming for how young she is, especially without me there. The Rothschild pool is clean and affordable as well, not to mention it was usually busy, but not shoulder to shoulder packed. We very much enjoy having that facility as a community resource. It'd be very sad to see it. Thank you, your village colleagues, for your time. Please don't take the Rothschild pool facility away from our children and healthy population. So, and that's just over the weekend. I think we would have a lot more of that. So unless we have a game plan to, expand Weston, I think it's horrible.
Well, one, we wouldn't make that decision through Rothschild and Schofield. That would be their decision. That would be independent of us, as Dino's pointing out. But the other pieces, Sean and I did identify that if there there would be some sort of partnership. We don't have what we would consider that birth to three section of our facility. And is that something that, if there was a joint partnership, that we would consider? I don't know, but,
And Rochelle's gonna have to answer, I think just a couple of years ago, it was brought to my attention too, that there were, just private donors within the community that donated a bunch of money, and they have a splash pad, for under 5, so they'll have to answer to that as well.
And I think, well, those letters technically should have gone to Rothschild because we have no say in your keeping it open and closed. And I mean, if they do close it, kids from Rothschild, are, as they do already, are still gonna come to our pool.
Yes, and it's already shoulder to shoulder.
Right.
And parking lots are packed at both pools, so.
Right, well,
And swimming lessons are always full, right? For us, so.
we take Rothschild, I mean, so it's, I mean,
Less
they
opportunity
should
for kids to get
contact
their swim
Rothschild.
lessons.
That's, at least at this point, a lot deeper than we should go as far as the discussion. I mean, it is literally, do we want to continue or start a discussion with them? Because there is a lot of logistics. We know there's a lot of more kids that can be served. Rothschild started nighttime swimming lessons last year. They have water exercise every day during the week. So there is a lot of other stuff to look at. But right now it's just, do we want to start that discussion with them?
Very interesting.
Yeah, I guess I think it's fair to be open to the conversation. And it's, it's like everyone has said, it's not our choice whether they keep it open or closed. I mean, that's for them and their residents to decide. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't have a conversation with them and be open to hearing whatever happens.
Now, if they want us to help maintain their, no.
No, I mean, so we had a separate group that met when we made the joint path back in 2017. So it was literally, we were going to meetings with the commission, they were coming to meetings here, and just getting that discussion going and see how we could work together. And as is in the RFC, is that a subcommittee?
So I don't think there's any action to take one way or another until they take an action. Right. I mean, yeah, sure, if they decide to close their pools and they want to talk to us about it, but having a conversation with us about them closing their pools is not the role of this body, and I don't think it's the role for you either. So I don't, yeah, obviously we can have all the discussions we want, but the fact is that this is preemptive at best. They have to, if they're considering closing their pool, then I think that all of this happens after they have had that discussion.
Agreed. Jim?
Going up here. Alright, Jim Penson, 502 Earl Street. So a couple things. One, a pool is a hole in the ground you dump money in, period. You will not make money at your pool unless you're Noah's Ark and you charge $100 per man to come in. We're not gonna make money at our pool. But it's our responsibility as a village that we have that pool, we maintain that as an asset to our customers. Michael doesn't make money when he drives his snowplows around, throwing salt everywhere, right? That's not a money-making thing, it's a service we provide. And it costs money to do that, and that's an expectation that we have as taxpayers, that I want Michael to drive his snowplows around and throw salt everywhere. Just like I have no idea, I've never been to this pool. My expectation is though that, gosh, we have a pool here, and if I had 3 kids, I would want to take my 3 kids down there, and it costs $25 or $125, whatever it costs for us to come down there and play in the pool for the day.
It's not $125.
But if you guys want to approve that, you can raise the prices to that,
Okay, and a partnership is just that, right? So our responsibility in the Village of Weston is that to the Village of Weston taxpayer. doesn't run and plow all the village of Rothschild streets, even though the same amount of snow hits them as hits us. There might be like some, I don't know, 10 mile overlap or something, but you're not plowing all of Rothschild streets. You're not plowing all of Schofield streets, right? So the same thing, we shouldn't have to provide a pool on our dime for them. If this is a partnership and they spend $1 million a year on a pool like we do, then they need to spend $1 million in our pool, and we will make a great big, wonderful pool that is big enough. Our pool already is full. It can't support, if there's 2 pools in the area, if you will, we'll take Wausau out of the picture. But if there's 2 pools in the area, our pool cannot support all that extra traffic if that pool is gone, right? And our pool, as it was just said there and over here, like they've got different stuff, right? They got the pool rock wall thing, they got the stuff for little kids and splash pad and whichever. Well, there's nothing that says we can't unbolt the splash pad and bolt it in here when we make Kennedy Park great again. But we're not to that point yet. Now is the time to do that planning and do that thought. But this isn't even that it's happening in 25. This is happening in 26, 27, 28, because I assure you, if we made this decision tonight, which it can't, but if it happened tonight, Sean's not gonna build us a pool next year. If we had this great grand plan, we're not even gonna get baseball fields built next year, likely, maybe, but probably not all of them, right? What have we spent in the last 5 years for improvements, capital improvements? I know we had a huge water leak. There's on a capital improvement plan, $450,000 I saw within the next 24 months. It's coming for pool stuff. Where does that come, right? So if we have other people coming, they need to help pay for that because we're still incurring that expense. We need additional room for those other people. And whatever action that we take can't detract or lessen the level of service that we provide, the Village of Weston provides for the Village of Weston residents. If we're gonna take on Rothschild Schofield and we're all gonna play in the same pool, hey, that's great, but our pool now has to be big enough and has to have no negative impact for the Village of Weston residents. Now, if it has a little kid splash pad and the short water stuff or whatever else we all need, when we rebuild it and now we have all of these communities in there, great. And now Weston doesn't have to go to Rothschild because we don't have a little kid thing here, we have it all here. But if we're not gonna do that, we're just doing a disservice to our residents and helping out Rothschild Schofield. It doesn't say that anywhere else in this building, it only says Village of Weston.
Thank you, Jen. Any ideas to further the motion?
I don't know that there wasn't a motion, was there a motion?
Is there? I believe so.
Was there?
No?
Oh,
Discussion.
It was
Not.
it was just
Sorry.
discussion.
Yeah, I guess I'd go back to I'd be willing to have a conversation, but I really need more information on what does their idea of a partnership look like with us, right? Like, great, like, are they gonna just transfer those funds to our facility? Like, seems like they're trying to free up some funds
Mhm.
and get rid of something, which is fine for them if that's what they have to do.
Maintenance.
But then where does the partnership come in that financially to help us with our end of the deal then?
Yeah,
I guess
again,
maybe-
what was the relationship, we just wanted to see if we were open to the conversation.
And there is a motion in the packet in the RFC, which I have up on the screen right now. As far as do future discussions take place?
Yeah, again, I think that if they come, I mean, I assume that you talk to parks people all the time, right? And if it gets to the point where, yeah, they're getting ready to talk about or close their pool, then yeah, I mean, there's absolutely nothing to stop you from having a conversation with them. You don't need our guidance to do that. But, I mean, I don't think this body has any role to take until they make a decision. I mean, at least I don't think so. I can't, that's pretty broad. I mean, there's nothing of upsetting in there, but at the same time, yeah, I mean, I don't think you need to call them and go, hey, you guys gonna close? What can we help you with?
I think it is purposely broad.
Yeah.
Because if you don't want us to invest our time in meeting with them, there's one answer. like, do you want us to spend that time?
Don't you already talk to them sort of on a normal operational basis?
We do,
Yeah,
I mean, but, you know, this is obviously a lot more in-depth conversation. But like you said, they need to
yeah,
choose a direction
yeah.
for themselves.
Like somebody said, these emails should have gone to them. You know, like, hey, you guys are closing your pool, we wanna have a voice in that. I mean, we don't have a role in this discussion. I mean, if they choose to keep their pool open, keep their pool, or close their pool, you know, that's them. I mean, if their decision is contingent on this body saying, we will expand our pool, then that is not acting in good faith between two municipalities. You know, so I don't have a problem with you talking to the guys from Rothschild, which I assume you do already, but yeah, I don't think this body needs to have any official conversation until their body decides what they're going to do. If that makes sense.
I agree.
Okay, yeah. Well, how did this come about? I mean, did the conversation come in that they might or might not be interested in this?
Because it was at their aquatic center commission, and it was expressed, would there be alternate options? And then it was asked, would we consider? Their administrator asked me, and I said, we need to ask them.
Well, I think we would be open to discussion, but at this point in time, until they make an official action asking us to deal with it, you know, to talk to them about it, I don't know what we're doing. I mean, I'm not sure, but.
Again, I think it's just a piece of, I'm hearing that we don't wanna have any formal conversation until they make a firm decision,
Right.
but also that we're not opposed to having a conversation. I don't want to speak for them, but I also don't think that it's unreasonable to think that part of their process in making the decision is whether or not we're open to having a conversation, and they could still provide that resource or that option to residents in the future. But, I mean, I get that it's their decision to make. I think they just wanted to say, we've done other good partnerships, is this something we could partner?
I guess I wouldn't have a problem just making a motion that, we would be, possibly be interested in exploring the partnership, but at this point in time, they're the ones that are going to have to make that move.
So I'm unclear, aside from them giving us money, I mean, there is absolutely nothing in the world that prevents Rothschild kids from getting on their bikes and coming to Weston, right?
Right.
Okay, so then at this point, I don't know, like if their pool closes, kids are gonna get on their bikes and ride to our pool.
Mhm.
And it would still be Norfolk.
Yeah, that's fine, but I'm just saying, like, today, or last week, kids from Rothschild came to our pool.
Right.
And so what we're talking about is, if they close their pool and decide to give us money to do something, I keep coming back to this idea of, I don't know what we're, you know, because Rothschild kids come to the Weston pool, so I'm not sure what they're offering, because again, we're far preemptive in this. So, I mean, if they decide to close their pool and they want to give us $1 million, I imagine that this body will say, yeah, sure, it's $1 million. But, I mean, there would be nothing to stop Rothschild children from coming to Weston pool. So, yeah, I don't have a problem with you guys talking to them, but I also don't think that until they do anything, there's anything for this body to do.
And because there's no action to be had, I think we should just leave it.
Consensus that if they approach you to, you know, like I said, the kids are gonna come, whether they're in partnership with us or not. And if they are in partnership, maybe we can do a little bit to, like you said, that waiting pool or, you know, but I don't know, you know, but the expense of the pool is, high enough without adding unless there's some, if they're willing to come in with some money.
If it's a joint venture, everybody pays
Right.
the same amount.
Not necessarily.
Well, you can put it on the scale or however you want to.
So far, our joint ventures is prorated depending on the population, so. And other things. Okay, keep on.
All right, I think we'll move to number 7, discussion and possible action, concession stand agreement.
So, the concession stand agreement ends, prior to the 2025 season, so it expires in September of this year. I did share it with the Cronins, which they already have copies of it from, being approved. But just wanted them to review it because we did have some discussions over the season as far as, them possibly having the ability to close by their choice. Because currently the agreement reads that they will be open when we are open. So we're making the decision for them. And part of their agreement with another facility that they have is they actually, once they reach a minimum patron count, they can determine if they're gonna close. They just have to give the facility a half-hour heads up. One thing they did propose was that if we want to, and that would be a village decision, if we want to change the minimum patron count. So our minimum patron count right now is 20 people. If it's something that we would up to 30 or 40 people, which could produce more sales for them possibly. Still no guarantee regardless. There's lots of times where we run into, barely just being above the minimum patron count, or even with 40 people, you're still limited on how many people would go to the concession stand. We understand they're not in the business just to provide a service; they're in the business to make some money. So it's really an option of, do we restructure the agreement, giving them the ability to close, or if it's something that we change our current policy to hopefully have more people there to, that would be utilize the concession stand. That was just one of the options that they threw out. It wasn't that they were asking for what they currently have in their other agreement, but it was just, is there another option? So, just your thoughts on that. The rest of the agreement, as far as the current operator, is fine, but it is literally just that closing option.
What, I guess, what number are you looking at? 40, 50?
I didn't put a number on.
Okay, but I wouldn't want the option left to them to close. I mean, they could then maybe close for, who knows, they got something else going on. I want, if they close, there's got to be, like, the number dropped to 30 people and it isn't, worth their time or whatever to.
So that's one of the things that we're putting out there. So just because it's an option for them, doesn't mean we get to set our policy at that for ourselves. It could be in this agreement. So if you're gonna say, we'll up the number to 40 for concession operation, you could do that. But do you want to up that for the pool also? That would be an option. We, at 20. We know that at 20 people, we're losing money per hour.
How often does that happen?
A couple times a week, at least.
So are we talking about like end of day 20 people or middle of the day 20 people?
It varies. Like literally, you can open at 11. We'll stay open minimum, usually at least 2 hours till 12:45. But if we don't reach minimum patron count, and we obviously watch the weather, like if it's going to jump up to 80, it gets sunny. we're not gonna close, but, you know, if we don't reach that minimum patron count in that hour and 45 minutes before the 12:45 break, we would close for the day.
Do Steve and Janessa have a number in mind? Are
They threw out 30 or 40,
Yeah, I mean, so I think that it's.
and I don't think they would close on purpose.
No,
If they're gonna make money, and they stated that in their response to me, that they would be open.
but if there's 31 people there and it's raining or cloudy, yeah, it's staffing their end of things dependent on our operations. I think that's probably logistically hard, you know, for them to, you know, because if you're 15 years old and you're working at a concession stand and, you know, okay, you gotta go home, you know, then all of a sudden, do I get paid for the day or do I not get paid for the day? I think that it seems like 30 people is a reasonable number. You know, I think that Steve and Janessa have acted in good faith with us for what seems like 100 years as the concession operators. You know, I think that if they want to modify their agreement, I don't see a significant difference between 10 and or between 20 and 30 if the vendors want that. Ultimately, I'm okay with 30.
And are you thinking just concessions, or are you thinking changing the pool policy in general?
I'm just thinking about this contract.
Okay,
That's all, yeah. I
Nope.
mean,
I just figured that
the
was,
operational part of the pool, that's a whole other, that's you and why, I guess, talking about stuff.
and we know if there's 30 people coming in per hour at what they pay, we're losing money. We know that, but we're still providing that service.
Right.
So, I mean, it's no different. We had a really weird weather day in August. And we weren't at the minimum patron count. We were at 6 people, but we had a group of 92 come in, which put us well over that. But 92, that's scheduled for 3 hours. So we're losing money for 4 hours because they're coming in for 4 hours, but we're above the minimum patron count. So those things are gonna happen, no matter what you do, like I said. So we're providing a service, and you can set your minimum patron count where you want, but it's still no guarantee that we're not losing money. A lot of it's about just providing that service.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the discussion here is whether or not to continue with Steve and Janessa, and the contract can really sort of be an operational thing for you guys to decide upon, but yeah, I don't see a reason to change that relationship. You know, the nuts and bolts of that contract can obviously be amended, but I wouldn't want to change horses.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jen.
Couple things on that, the pool loses money every day, whether you got 1,000 people there or 100 people there or 1 person there. So let's say that we're gonna close it at 20, because we're losing money, doesn't matter, you're just not losing money as fast. Again, a hole in the ground, we don't money, right? So we're providing that service, just like Michael does, and we do it for 60 some days a year, 71 days or whatever it is. It's a very narrow window that we do that. As far as the contract, I would love to see the addresses amended and updated, because they're over 2 years old on one and over a year and a half old on the other one.
And you understand this agreement was drafted in 2021, right?
I do understand that, also understand it's a legal binding contract. I haven't seen a draft of a new contract, that you only provided in the packet a contract that was
The previous one, yes. We have not
Yeah,
drafted a
so
new one.
If the idea is to have the board, planning as your parks commission committee review the contract and provide an approval, they can't do that because you don't have a new contract for that.
And I wasn't looking for approval. I was looking for a discussion on possible changes to the contract, because I knew I wouldn't have the final contract tonight. It would just be, we're gonna address this possible change to it, and then draft the new agreement.
So that'll come back here next.
Yep, it'll come back next month.
And then what was the total, again, this is discussion, so you don't have to answer that, but what was the total dollars revenue generated at 10%? If we're looking at budget shortfall on the pool and operations, is 10% the number that we need to be at? Is that a fair number? I've never seen that in finance, never seen it anywhere else. Not saying that Steve and Vanessa don't do a good job, I'm sure they do a great job. But we're looking at all this stuff, now's the time to look at it when you write the contract, right? Like, does this need to be 1%? Does it need to be, is that palatable for them?
So are you talking like 10% this year?
I'm talking, this says they pay 10%.
Yes, I know, but if you're asking for a number, 10%, are you asking for what they paid this year so far or previous years?
Right, so it costs.
It varies on their sales, so what we receive is their gross minus sales tax. Last year, they had a record year, which was the best year in the history of the concession stand. So we actually made a lot more than we typically would. Our average usually is 5,000 to 6,000 on their total sales minus sales tax per year. This year we've received just the June payment at this point. We're still waiting for the July and August. But you know, last year, like I said, it was an anomaly. We've had great years since 2020.
Even if you took one, that's my question, I have no idea what that number looks like.
Yeah, is that number?
Concessions revenue, $50,000 isn't gonna blow the pool, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And it's based on sales. We've talked about this contract before, where most properties rent with a monthly amount. You know, you pay a monthly amount. It doesn't matter what that person is getting for sales. They could do 5,000 sales, they could do 30,000 sales. They still have to pay the same amount. So when we've discussed this contract previously, they want to keep it based on sales. And like I said, is 10% the right amount? I know that my discussion with them was, even though last year was a record year for sales, they still made no more money than the year before. Because costs went up so much between labor, food, etc. So, and that's based on just my discussion with them.
Yeah, well, that's what I wanted to comment over the fact that this is based on gross sales, not net sales. Prices of everything has gone up. And, but we're still getting
Gross.
the gross.
Yeah.
And even though it's costing them now $20 instead of $10 for hot dogs, we're still getting our 10% out of that hot dog.
Yep.
And so I guess, to me, I would recommend that we continue with a 3-year contract with the option of setting up for, what do I want to say?
A minimum patron count
Yes,
for them to be open.
yes,
And this would, like I said, this would come back because the changes have not been made.
right. But that would be my recommendation for the lease.
Anybody else? Right. So we just moved to table?
I move to recommend that we approve 3-year lease with Steve and Janice Cronin with the caveat of putting the minimum count,
Patron count
patron count. And that was something
to 30.
30.
I second.
Motion by Ermeling, second by Clark. Motion's been approved, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any more discussion? Opposed, motion passed. Great, discussion and possible action, playground area improvements at Weston.
So throughout the process of the 7 playgrounds that we removed and replaced this year, and we knew that we weren't replacing the one at Bachmiller because it was quite a bit newer than the rest. But one of the things that we noticed was that, you know, just the inconsistency with the concrete curbing that was installed. It looks great. The mulch looks great. Mockbuehler still has the wood ties that are uneven. You know, still has sand installed, and it's both the playground and the swing set area. We know that, or we're hoping that the possibility would be to upgrade that facility too, as far as with the concrete curbing and the mulch. I know it is an ask beyond what was originally approved, as far as funding. So we, are bringing it to you to see if that is something that you would like to possibly move forward with for this year.
Can it be completed this year?
It would be completed this year. Total cost is right now, estimated at $12,034. All of our curbing for all of our other facilities all came in under what was projected. We ended up doing less lineal feet than what was projected based on the measurements of the plans. And the engineered wood fiber, we put at $30 a yard because that's what we're paying for others. We did get a pretty massive discount because we ordered thousands, we got it for $22 a yard. So there was no guarantee that we would get it for that cost again. But I didn't want to do too much work on, setting anything up unless it was decided to move forward. So.
I guess, I'm not enthused about adding more money to the park, but I guess in all reality, what all we did to all the other parks, and this one is kind of just sitting there. I mean, a little upkeep we need to do periodically.
Do you happen to have pictures of?
Of completed ones?
No, I drive past the completed one
Oh,
regularly.
Mock Mueller? I
Um,
don't have a picture with me.
Okay.
I
What-
probably have some old pictures of it, but I
what's-
don't have one.
I guess
It was installed in 2007.
and what is the,
It's actually the curbing is more curbing than we have at our new ones because it's not as compact of an area because they're separate right now. And there's no sense in moving those areas closer to each other. It just would make sense to curb what's existing.
is there anything wrong with,
The playground equipment?
not the equipment, but the curbing, the wood ties and the sand there at the moment?
Well,
Other than it doesn't look as nice as the rest of the parks
Well-
right now?
technically the sand is not improved as far as a safety service for fall zones. So it's not in compliance currently as far as fall zone. The ties technically could stay. But the, safety surface should be replaced regardless. We still have 168 yards of safety surface coming in to complete our existing playgrounds. So, no, the wood ties could stay, for sure.
Is some of this funding though parkland dedication?
We briefly discussed it, I briefly discussed it with finance, and since we are coming in under budget with the entire playground project, that we should just try possibly to continue to use ARPA funding for if we would try to do these upgrades.
Cause we set aside like 800,000.
800, and we're gonna come in at around 710, 720 in the playground project. A lot of it has to do with the curbing. So the curbing bids came in from 44,000 to 110,000. So
So it seems like the sand has gotta go just to be in compliance.
Right.
So this is just a question of how comfortable we are with doing curbing, because it seems like sand has gotta go.
So the sand, there's a great home for that, it would be in the volleyball court at Williams Park, or maybe some of the other volleyball courts that are terrible. I think the motion that was originally made, pretty sure I know the guy that made it, but it said something to the effect of replace the 7 playgrounds and the surrounds, not these. So I think you would have to go back to the board of trustees to ask for ARPA funding for that.
and it would regardless.
And I think the only way that would be fair is if you talk to the same contractors, call Reedy, say, hey, look, if we do another 100 feet, I'm only doing it at $22 a foot or whatever that says up there. And call your mulch guy and say, hey, if I need another 64 yards to take that 168 up to whichever, I gotta get it at $22 a yard. And then, and only then, if it's at those dollars, would it be doable. But otherwise,
And like I said, I knew that this would have to go to the board.
sure.
So,
This
but to
makes
proceed
sense.
forward,
Capacity,
yeah.
Like, hey, this sand doesn't that's back in 2007 when we installed it. That's too damn bad, and that's back in 2007, the playground police doesn't say you have to replace the stand. It's still there. Yes, we could get it, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, but the right way to do it isn't something that.
Yeah, and
Like, we
for
have
sure.
money left over, let's spend it, that's not cool.
No, so as far as we do, this would go back to the board. And that's why when I wrote the RFC, it was that we would get accurate pricing for the mulch and the curbing prior to bringing it to the board for an approval for a contract. So it wouldn't just be the committee cannot approve anything, they can only recommend.
I would think the mulching, we haven't gotten it all, could almost ask to put in some more where they do.
So we also do have a supplier local too, that approached us once we started doing the playground, which is just a few miles down the road. He has the engineered wood fiber that meets the requirement. So it is possible that we could get it and save a ton of money on the trucking costs.
Then I move to recommend moving forward with the improvements on Knockmey Lane Park.
Oh, second.
Motion, by Rubino, second by Easter, motion's been approved, all in favor say aye. Any more discussion?
Yeah, we should have a discussion before it's approved. My question is, you're approving this, are you approving the, recommending the curb also? Or just the mulch?
I'm recommending the $12,034 package as outlined here in the packet.
Opposed?
Ryan?
Motion passed. Number 9, discussion and possible action, park user groups, memorandum of understanding.
So in the packet, is a draft MOU, and this MOU would be utilized with the user groups specifically. It's not with the Friends of Kennedy Park fundraising group. It is just for what those individual user groups as far as hockey, softball, baseball. And it is just a draft, and I based it on some other drafts that I reviewed prior to putting this one together. And, you know, one of the things that I came across, which is included, was so it basically adjusts the costs for each user group based on how many people they have registered within their group. So if their numbers go down, their cost goes down. If their numbers go up, their cost goes up, instead of having a set dollar amount on it. And I utilized the rates that were in there, which were 15 for a resident, 25 for a non-resident, you know, with 500 or 600 kids in youth baseball, that would be around $12,000 as far as what they would be required to commit to each year. And it's not that they have to charge, you know, the families that, but it would be part of their fundraising goal that they would be responsible for that $15 or $25 per person. And doesn't mean that the increased registration fees, as we've known, they've been climbing for years just due to everything's more expensive. So I did include that in there, but there's a lot of options as far as how you would like to handle, you know, their responsibilities per year. You know, if it's financial or if it's, you know, volunteer labor, which is also in there. There's multiple items, and like I said, this is just a draft at this point. So it's, you know, any thoughts you have. I did include a couple of agreements that I got from Weston Marathon County. I also included one, I believe it was out of California. And then, you know, the agreement that I did draft. So, and like I said, I do need to draft another one for the fundraising development portion with the Friends group, which would be, you know, as far as what each group knows as far as their portion of the fundraising effort. But this would be like the annual, semi-annual, whatever it is, as far as agreements with the user groups to continue helping fund some of the cost and or, future improvements.
Yeah, so, I see you're here. One of the things I would say is a memo of understanding between us, and I'll use you guys as an example because you're sitting here, hockey, prior to putting a shovel in the ground to build him a hockey rink, I think is probably, again, premature. I think that we are, by structure, up in the air with the activities regarding Kennedy Park. And I think that the appropriate memo of understanding to start with is the fundraising memo of understanding with the Friends of Kennedy Park. That seems to be the tack that and the direction that we as a body chose. I think these are all fine. I think that, if hockey wants to sign an agreement based on future hockey rinks, then that would be okay with me. But ultimately, if I'm him, this agreement is a discussion internally for us to set prices and responsibilities. But we haven't built a hockey rink yet, so I don't think anybody should be signing anything. I think these are all just fine documents to review.
So yeah, it's something that would not be in place until the facility is completed. And I'm pretty sure that's where you're going with it.
Yeah.
Like you can't sign something when it's not done.
You and I talked about this, I've talked about this before. Until there's a memo of understanding about the direction for fundraising and the strategy for that piece, it is my belief, both as a professional, as a body, as a member of this body, that none of these discussions have merit to be blatant about it. I think that they're all fine to have, but again, we haven't put a shovel in the ground, we haven't raised a nickel, so I don't think hockey should sign anything from us.
And that makes sense. I mean, like I said, but if you do have any feedback on what's currently there that we can use in future draftings of this document, which would not be even necessarily next month, as we work on the Friends Group one. So if you have anything you would like to share as far as what's within the current draft.
So when so just then to follow up on that point, when you sort of did a survey of other municipalities who have similar MOUs with groups, this sort of all falls within a sort of a normative language, like it's all, you're not taking any flyers?
Like they don't. I mean, like that's why you see the agreement with MC United and the agreement with the Wausau Area Softball League. They are literally completely different than what I draft because they are literally more like a contract.
I do think.
So I did research. I did research some, and I found one that I thought really made a lot of sense. And that's the one I kind of worked off of, along with looking at the other ones. And like I said, with not a lot of direction on where we want to go with it.
Right.
This is what I put out in front of you.
Yeah.
And it could be completely off from what you're thinking. But you don't want to, I don't want to give you something that, I spent 50 hours on and it's nothing you want. So that's why if there's any feedback, you don't have to share it tonight. You can share it via email. If you get a chance to review it a little deeper and you see something that just completely missed, but it was, just based on the ones I was able to review.
Jamie, I have a question. So in your life, professional experience, other places, at what point does this become a contract relationship versus just sort of a memo of understanding? At some point, it feels like at some point there will be a transition where either the park is established or some sort of metric is achieved. But like I'm saying, having seen more of it than we have, is there a point where it transitions to a contract relationship?
I would say contractual is when you want to make sure that you're receiving a certain amount of service that you are paying for. So
Okay.
this is an MOU. It's an understanding for usage.
Yep.
We aren't expecting a certain amount of tournaments to be played
Right.
there or usage of the field to equal, making the payment for it.
And then, so then the follow-up for, again, for example, hockey. So they will be hypothetically providing us with X amount of dollars in services and stuff like that. And then with that as a result, would they expect a contract?
They, I think, are expecting an understanding of what their usage is that since they provide.
What is available to them?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And we see that sort of in the language of sort of first right of refusal and stuff like that, that's in there, that's in these memos of understanding, right, Sean? So there's language about how we're first in line, the stakeholder groups are second in line,
Yep.
and then, after that, it's sort of a wide open.
And I think that's the ultimate goal for the user groups, is to have that access.
Yeah.
Really, they want to negotiate that access so they have the ability to schedule their games or practices, above and beyond anybody else that would be wanting to utilize those fields. So I don't believe we need any action, unless you have some more questions.
Do you have something?
No, I'll just affirm everything that you just said. That's exactly what we're kind of looking for from our side, is that, we have some sort of framework that, I'm not gonna say guarantees us, but first right of refusal is a good way to
You're
say
in
it.
line.
Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, or,
Right.
whatever that turns out to be. And then in exchange, I guess the friends can officially represent this or discuss this later, but, in my mind, I would rather have in my mind, a set dollar amount per hour of ice. Versus every
Yeah.
February trying to come up with $100,000
Yeah.
to fund the following year.
Yeah.
But I guess I don't know how baseball and softball currently does that with.
And like I said, I just seen it. I previously had thought that it would be more of a set dollar amount. But once I saw that, it kind of bases it on your registration. So if your numbers dive tremendously, you go from 500 to 300, it'll be easier to accommodate that lower amount because your registration's down. You're not going to have the volunteers. You're not going to have the fundraising that you would with 500 kids versus 300 kids. So I saw that as an example. I put it in there. Doesn't mean it's going to stay in there. So that's why this discussion takes place,
Yeah,
because
well, and we could do a hybrid approach too, where it would be something along the lines of, if Everest Youth Hockey wants to have first right of refusal from November through March, $50,000 has to be put in an escrow account to be held at the Village of Weston, and then we can just pull off of that money from there, or, there's a bunch of different things.
and you're used to user fees as far as per hour,
Yeah.
where
That's how we
where
work.
baseball, softball are not used to that.
Okay.
That's one of the reasons that they pulled out of utilizing Corona letter, is because they wanted to charge per game, but they wanted to charge that money, but then not maintain their facilities. So, and if that money's going to the Village Corona letter, they're not necessarily taking that money and putting it in their fields.
Yeah.
So that's where the lines get a little convoluted for some of these user groups, because they've had bad experiences with it before, where if you pay that hourly fee and then they don't maintain the field, you're still paying that hourly fee. Ice is a little bit different.
I agree with you, but I think your MOU has to specifically follow each sport, right? So if you're a baseball kid, it's this. If you're just doing hockey and you're not worried about baseball, you don't care what the baseball field looks like, right? You just gotta have good, clean ice to do your thing. But the baseball kid doesn't care what the ice rink looks like, right? So you need to just buy into the one, chapter 3 in this MOU. It needs to be, like, you don't have to have a separate one, but it needs to be geared for each user group.
And that's how it was drafted. So this one was drafted specifically for Everest Youth Baseball, if you see at the top. And they would be different for each group.
It's also important to note that they've all come together as stakeholders under one umbrella of Friends of Kennedy Park. So while each operational piece is important, they're also standing next to each other as one body.
For sure, right, but it has to be palatable for all of them, right? So baseball's number has to work for baseball, and hockey's number's gotta work for hockey, and softball's number's gotta work for softball. And put them all in there so everybody knows what, because you might have a baseball kid and a hockey kid that plays both of them, right? So I need to know what I'm gonna do in summer and what I'm gonna do in winter. You wanna know.
And there is that on the last page. So if you see programs covered by partnership agreement, tells you the multiple different partners that are involved. Even though the top is specific to DC Everest Youth Baseball for this draft. And then, when the payment, it says payment seasons, but the payments would be different based on the different group. And that's just, like I said, how I drafted it. So, but at least, like you said, you would know youth baseball, youth hockey, the school, Everest Fast Pitch, who's involved, and then what the agreements are, because they would definitely be different. And that's why I drafted this one specifically to baseball. Most familiar with baseball. I think you guys all know that, based on my experience with the league and being involved for so many years, besides in my position.
So I guess from what I'm hearing, we revised the draft MOU to gear for each user group instead of dollar amount price.
And obviously work on the MOU for the Kennedy Park fundraising group, which should be the one that would come prior to these because we haven't put a shovel in the ground yet. So no agreements would be in place. We need to work on the one with the fundraising group. Then each partner knows what they're responsible for.
And I guess I do want to make sure it's understood that I agree with you 100%. So, the hockey one will be specific kind of to hockey, but I want to make sure that we're still under the same umbrella. So if you want to call hockey addendum 1 or appendix A or whatever, that's fine. But I just want to make sure that, like how you have it worded here, that it always says Everest Youth Hockey, Everest Baseball, Everest Fast Pitch, that all the user groups are always kind of referred to at the top of the document.
Because then it'd be almost like an agreement with the village and the 4 user groups all in one, so they'd all know what they're responsible for.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Yeah.
Because then you can call out a different group if they're not.
Right, and I hate it.
Yeah, I'm not saying you would.
Well, I'm not concerned right now, but in 7 years, when the organizations start to fragment a little bit, that would be a big concern.
Right.
And we've talked about that at the.
Yeah, that was from the start.
Quite a bit,
Right.
and so, yeah, this work has to be done now. But it's nice that you committed to 100,000. Thanks for coming in and doing.
Pesos.
Yeah, oh, okay, all right.
Or Dogecoin or whatever.
I guess, is this where we can talk about shovels in the ground, or is this?
I would do that underneath my report if possible.
Okay.
And I did send you all a update today, as far as where things stand. But if we wanna, I don't know if we wanna skip over the naming rights policy, because it does have some to do with the comments that were in Sarah's email today. Yeah, I'm not there yet. So, I did share with you an email today. It was an update from both G. Morty and Sarah Olson. And I said it wouldn't be on the agenda tonight, but there is a comment regarding dollar amounts and as far as naming rights on what pieces of the park would be under the naming rights policy. So I would actually prefer if you not look at the naming rights policy tonight.
All right, good evening to you both. Molly, I'll start with you. A piece in the hill Actually, defense, the media's treatment of Kamala saying it's hard for the media.
And my mom, no, I'm just kidding.
No, that's Mark.
That's true, to instant so sweet. Yes. We have, I think, right now, we're coming to
Okay.
I got him.
Okay.
Sorry. So, like I said, I shared those documents with you. I got, some of it last night, some of it on Friday. And my goal tonight was just to give you an update underneath my report as far as where those projects were. So
I guess I
if you would please defer action, that's
And I
the,
guess I would kind of like to see what you're all thinking of being able to.
I shared it with you today.
Yeah.
So if you have time to review over the next few weeks.
I had started and then I found some.
No, I know you did because you emailed me about
Yeah.
something you found.
Yes.
And you weren't the only email that I got regarding that. So like I said, I wasn't expecting you to review what I sent you today. It was,
I was at an idle moment.
so if you could defer, if you could make a motion to defer.
Yeah, make a motion to defer the policy
To next month.
for the next one.
Second.
Motion by Ermeling, second by Easter. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any more discussion? Opposed? Number 11, possible next meeting date, September 23rd, 2024. Topics for future meetings.
Naming rights.
Remarks from staff?
So I have a few items. Like I said, I shared with you today updates from G. Morty and Sarah on the marketing campaign. There's a copy of the ask letter in there. There's also thoughts on other portions of the marketing campaign. And there are some inaccuracies, which Barb pointed out one, and I found one myself, within the ask letter. So I just ask that you review them if you see something within those. But they still are on track for an early fall release as far as getting the campaign together. They did shoot footage at both the softball tournament and baseball tournament, which should have been in July and early August. So they have footage for videos as far as that portion of it. But so it's the ask letter, the naming rights list price, which they shared their thoughts on it. But we have to set those amounts. Flyer, postcard, social content. So there's a lot of multiple different taglines they put on there that could be used, that tie in with the village tagline and logo. And they are working on those things right now. I know Sarah, with the opening of the Green Neck Turner Community Center, she was, as far as reviewing it, got a little bit behind, but now ready to move forward. And then, working with the community foundation, because all this stuff has to be approved to some extent through the community foundation, because they need to be included in it. They don't necessarily have to approve what we're doing, but community foundation has to be included in it as far as that.
Yeah, so just from my perspective, I didn't like the ask letter. And the reason that I didn't like the ask letter is because it takes the focus off of what I had spoken about with Gene Morty, what I talked about with Sean, what I've talked about here, and taken it off the shine of everything that Weston Parks has done and made it simply about one thing, right? And that ask letter doesn't take into account and doesn't give shine or acknowledgement to the other things that Weston has done. So, I mean, if it's, as we look back, we've built boat or canoe landings, whatever they're called, launches, whatever. We took on a really weird and unique Prohaska thing. We built all of our playgrounds again.
Dog park, skate
Dog
park.
park
I
is
get,
amazing. Right? And so,
and this is something we've all discussed. It was literally building off what we've already done, and
this doesn't build off of that at all. And so secondarily, this body, I mean, Sarah can send out whatever letter she wants. You know, the friends can send out whatever letter they want, because this isn't a document from the Village of Weston. To be, I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it until the end of time, but if she wants to send out a letter, she can. We don't have a memo of understanding with her. This isn't a letter from the Village of Weston, and we have empowered them to act on their own. And so I can object to this letter all I want, but ultimately, we don't have a role as a body in stopping them from sending something out. So they're empowered to act on their own, which, as I've said before, I have a problem with. But more than that, specific to the ask letter simply doesn't take into account all of the things that Weston has accomplished.
But we can make suggestions.
So maybe make that suggestion.
I made a note on it. So,
Okay, same. I can talk to Sarah as well.
yeah, I made a note on it as far as that, because I do have some other notes. Barb and I discussed one, and I shared one that I had also with her. So if you do come across anything else, and then additional, I did forward you, we did receive the plans from REI for phase 1 at 60% completion. I shared those with Michael and Ike for review, because me looking at construction documents for building that is not the person that should be looking at it. So,
What do you mean
60%, so 60% completion of the construction documents for phase 1. So we're supposed to review it to make sure that everything that we have as part of our contract are included within that document. So at 60% review, if there's something they run across, instead of completing them 100% and then we tell them there's something wrong, we're at 60% right now. They can make changes and then adjust before they go through and complete the documents.
Unfortunately, I guess some standard, the DOT kind of set that standard for road design projects. As a civil engineer, you learn, you go through your 30, 60, 90, and then final design. So it just more or less means we've got enough detail in there to kind of get the gist of what we're looking to build, and then if you're good with that, we'll refine it down to make sure that we get it down to, you know, the inches and not just the general within a couple feet or within a foot. Now we're trying to get down to within an inch, and then eventually we want it to be, you know, right on the head with the elevations and how everything looks.
Yeah, and along with that, they did request that we complete the borings of the soil at Kennedy Park, which Michael did contact. I'm not even sure which contractor you utilized.
That's American Engineering Testing. They're right on Schofield Avenue.
Yeah, so and sent the map over that REI provided us as far as locations for the borings, which will test the soil to make sure it's suitable for construction, or if it's a building, it's a field, etc.
It's the stormwater infiltration areas. Put water somewhere where it's just going to sit in that cold.
So, and then a couple other things. Trustee Pincinel did contact us this past week regarding the restrooms not being open at the disc golf course. Also, the just general condition of the course as far as maintenance, etc. It is something that the village definitely needs to address. I know that you guys are all aware, or you're all aware that we did meet with the West Area Disc Golf Enthusiasts last spring as far as this right here, as far as their proposal. We also did have the wetland delineation completed last October as far as moving forward. They have done some work out there regarding their proposal, but it's not, and we have not done anything as far as moving that project forward. Ms. Clark here is one of them that offered to help out with the process as far as cutting trees, brush removal, etc. But it's definitely something that got put back a lot. A lot of it has to do with the challenges of the site. Tree removals, a lot of times we don't do tree removals until they actually come down, and then somebody contacts us because we don't walk the course on a regular basis. We have done some tree removals down there. A lot of times the trees just get stacked, or the disc golf group asked us to leave the pieces there because they, in their own mind, have different ways of setting up obstacles within the course. Signage down there was part of their proposal that they would provide all the signage for each course hole. They have a designer in place, but still ultimately is a village asset. So it is something that we need to follow up with and make sure it gets completed. As far as the restroom facility is not open. I did talk with Brian today. He has completed a couple of the items that we were just hoping to try to preempt any damage there. The door locks need to be installed. Cameras are here. Nate is meeting with Marty from NetPros as far as getting the internet set up for the cameras so we can actually monitor that site. The door locks are still the wrong ones. So prime example, Brian actually locked his keys inside the bathroom. So you can lock the next person from utilizing it because they put on a type of lock that's not compatible with park bathrooms. So you either put a deadbolt with pull handles with key on both sides, or you do a daylight lock, which as soon as you close it, the button pops out. But if you're inside, as long as the door's closed, you push the button and it stays there. It's no different than like a bathroom lock. So there's work to be done there. And there's plenty to do there. Playground update, the curbing was poured at Sand Hill and Kennedy this past week. Kennedy installation was completed last Tuesday. The mulch and topsoil was completed at Kennedy today, and they were working on Sand Hill this afternoon. We do need to complete all the power raking and seeding of all the topsoil areas and seeding around all the curbing areas. So that is the next project. And one last thing that I was approached about and had contact with today. So, and I'll put it out there tomorrow in front of the directors group. So Watt Supply contacted us. They're looking to do a commercial installation of a new siding product. It's new, but it's still based on one of their current lines. They'd like to do in a commercial building that they could access. They would provide all the installation, all the product free. So if you have any ideas of any buildings that within the village that we own where they could install it, they like the idea of being a municipal project just because most of the time they can access it anytime. They don't have to contact the homeowner and say, hey, are you gonna be home? Can I take a look at it? You don't want me wandering around on your property, etc. Initially, when I got word from them, I thought it might be something that we could utilize for some of the new facilities at Kennedy, but they're looking to do something within the next couple of months. But most of those buildings are originally not planned to stay there.
Okay,
So-
well, that's what I was just gonna say, are we ever looking at keeping any of those buildings there?
So, anybody has any ideas? Let me know. Like I said, I'm gonna share with the rest of the directors tomorrow, because there could be a well house or, other facility that we have that could utilize that. I mean, no different than partnership with Green Heck. They provided the fans for the new facility back here, and we just had to pay for the installation. They want to provide all that, and they still do provide a warranty on the siding too. So if something fails or, so just putting it out there as far as an opportunity. Not too often you get those types.
No?
Any type of building?
We'll talk about it tomorrow, right?
Sure.
Think about it. Give you some time.
Well houses and stuff.
I know. Think about it. We could redo the shed at Kennedy and turn it from a metal panel to solid siding, and it might be something that could stay,
That's what it was.
So, yeah, I just talked to him like literally three hours ago. So I wonder how they got my name.
Yeah.
Number 14, remarks from committee members.
Now Kennedy Park, are the kids able to play on the
Yes,
equipment yet?
Yes.
Because I was in the grocery store the other day, going through and all of a sudden I heard my name, somebody bellowing across the thing.
there was one section that they poured a concrete pad for last Tuesday. But they installed the mats and the roping structure, all that was installed, but they're like, let's keep this section closed till we can actually tighten down the anchors, because they just poured the concrete last Tuesday. So we tightened down the anchors today, and they installed the mulch underneath it, so everything's wide open.
Now-
All play structures.
Okay, all signs are down, because she was.
Yep,
concerned
signs are
kids
gone.
weren't going in there anyway, she said.
Oh, they were the whole time, but signs
You
are
know.
gone. The curbing's all poured, curbing's cured, that got poured last Wednesday and Thursday. So now it's literally just finishing the mulch and doing the, topsoil seeding.
At Kennedy.
At Kennedy, well, seeding everywhere. Topsoil got done today at Kennedy.
Okay.
They're gonna finish sand hill, and then we're just gonna power rake and seed all the playground areas all at once. Or on the outside of the curb.
Okay, so there's Sand Hill is.
You can play on it too, yeah. You can play on all of
There's
it.
none, because like I said, all the people are turning around and looking, and it's like.
Yeah, no, you can play on all of it. Sand Hill
Well, I said I
and,
thought it was
Sand Hill,
supposed to be-
Kennedy was literally the first one we started in April and the last one we get done.
Yeah, because they.
'Cause the missing
said, well,
pieces.
It's supposed to be done by the end of May.
Well, we're still
And then
missing, we're
there's
still
the
missing one,
customers
we're still missing
jumping on
one
that.
piece, we're still missing one piece, but it does not affect the play of the rest of the structure, so everything's open.
Okay, thank you. So next time we can all know what this story.
Now they go to Yellow Banks or Williams, those are the first ones we went to. Alright, I guess I have a question in regards to, at the last Parks meeting, Jamie, you were going to touch base with REI, and see what type of schedule they're on for phase one, and if we could expedite that, but, just curious if we have a timeline for that softball field.
Well, we're at 60%.
60%, right, so
So
what do we need to do next, I guess, to get?
They understand that we want to get a shovel in the ground for that field at the end of this year, so they're moving along as quickly as they can. And that was part of the agreement, so my conversation with Ken from REI is that they are still on track.
So possibly October is, I guess, what was said in the previous meeting, or?
I guess it will depend on once we look at 60% completion, if we're on a good track and where the soil borings come back, but I mean, the goal is still that. We are, at this moment, we are still on track for that goal.
How long does it usually take for the soil to come back?
And it waits to go.
No, and they can keep going with, what they have for phase one without the soil boring information.
Yeah, it's just more reviewing what is currently provided, the 60% plan, turning that around, getting it back to them so then they can continue on the design. And then really for us, it is, we have to bid the project out. So it'll have to be bid out. We'll have a timeline on that, come back to the committee, come back to the board for award. So there is some time involved yet, obviously, with the project. And we are at the 26th today, right? So our goal is still to hopefully get a shovel in the ground this year. We don't expect completion until next year, and it wouldn't be playable till the following year anyways. Because if it was all artificial turf infield, it's one thing, but when you have to grow grass, you can't turn it around the same year. So we know we're out at least to 2026 before it'd be playable.
So just to follow up on that, do the Friends of Kennedy Park know? Because I'll be honest, we had a pretty good discussion last meeting, and this is the first time, I think I've heard 2026.
Well, I'm just putting it out there. I mean, there's options.
The first field is a turf field. Not a-
It's all turf. The outfield is too. Okay, sorry about that.
Because
So,
I know Sarah sat there and said that 2025 is not what we talked about. And
as
now-
far as starting the project, right?
No, I think as far as playing on the field. And so if so Michael, if all things go well, can they play their sport on that field next year?
If everything went well, yeah, I mean, maybe not right away in April, but, say by end of May, it should be, and it might just be the field, it might not be all the nice accessories.
Yeah, I don't, yes, we talked about that last time. I don't really care about all the accessories. I just care that we as a body made a commitment to them that that's the first thing we were going to do. And I believe that we made a commitment that they were gonna be able to play because they explained on more than one occasion that with building a Green Heck Turner, they lost the field. And as partners, we were extending them this service, if you will. And so I am concerned that we just opened the door to 2026.
And I'm sorry, like he stated, and I said, if it was all artificial turf, it wouldn't be a problem. But if it's real turf and we had to grow grass, and like I said, I misstated myself. He clarified, that yes, if you do all artificial turf, it's one thing, but if you just, and there's options even with grass where you could sod it and make it playable within a couple weeks. But if you're just doing traditional topsoil seed, you need time to grow it. That's why sod is not harvested until it's 3 or 4 years old, if it's growing on a farm.
And I apologize, does our contract with REI include them bidding the project, or do we have to take that back over once they're done with the design?
We would bid it once with their documents. The bidding is minimal.
And we don't have to wait for the soil samples to do that.
No.
So right now, we could start getting the.
No, you can't, because you don't have the design.
We don't have a design,
You
no.
can keep going with the design without the soil samples, but we need to have the design finished to bid.
Don't have to design.
We have it 60%, we're at 60%.
The biggest thing is the first field that's gonna be built is down in that hole between the skate park and the aquatic center. So if you don't have your elevations and your grades right, it's gonna create a problem.
Okay, so I understand the difference between whatever REI is doing and the specificity of that, but we spent a year on the court. We came up with a strategic plan. We paid a guy to come up with a design. And so what design elements do we need to revisit other than the construction elements?
No, and that's all it is, it's making sure that the picture that we got in the corp
This picture, I
is,
thought we had it this.
yep,
I'm
correct.
confused.
Yes, so that, now you gotta make it 3D. Because you gotta make sure that that baseball field isn't at a 6% pitch in the outfield all of a sudden. Or that you're trying to drain the water from the parking lot here and all of a sudden that drainage is higher than the outfield. So anytime it rains, the field can't be used. So that's really the last little bit here, is just making sure that all the elevations work. There's gonna be a need for a retaining wall. How big does that retaining wall need to be? Is it 2 feet tall? Is it 4 feet tall? Just so that as this all comes together, we don't build this field and then we try to put in all these other elements, and now all of a sudden everything's wonky and it doesn't work. So that's where they're at right now, is just making sure that when we say go, and this is at, elevation 1200, this parking lot and everything else flows and it doesn't look like it's been put in pieces. Like, I completely understand. I am on the board of Everest Youth Baseball. Like, I get that there's an importance here. I've been in meetings with the JV softball program because they lost their field. Like, we converted Jones 1 last year so that they have a field they can play on. So yes, they're out of field, but they still have Jones 1 that they can use next spring as needed. They used Jones 1 this past fall for a softball tournament because they lost their field at the senior high. So I guess I personally am in a very awkward spot with all this because I have my village responsibilities, my baseball responsibilities, and then just as a community member, what I feel like should be an awesome thing going on here. So there's a lot of people that are doing everything we can to make this go as fast as possible, but we don't want it to be done wrong. We don't want it to be incorrect. So I get that we've got the picture, we've got everything, but now we need to make sure that the I's are dotted and the T's crossed so that we're not getting backwards on this. Even reviewing it today, I mean, I just want to make sure that we don't have the fence all of a sudden get installed right next to the skate park and we didn't account for foul balls and now kids trying to, do a some kind of trick in the air and all of a sudden he gets hit in the side of the head by a foul ball. Like, so there's some of those elements that we wanna make sure we're just capturing and taking care of. Same thing with the aquatic center on the other side, you know, you got kids sunbathing and all of a sudden they get hit by a ball. So there's just some of those elements, details that we wanna make sure are picked up. Because if we don't pick them up now and we bid it, then all of a sudden we're scrambling at the end because we go, oh shoot, now we've got another issue.
Okay, so then, obviously, skate parks are a big deal, and I'll use Weston as an example. 2 years ago, the mayor tweeted that they were gonna use ARPA funds to build a skate park. Today, they received a request for proposal that they accepted. So this body has said to the stakeholders that we're gonna have this field done for them. And I'm expressing my concern as a member of this body that this field, the very first field that we have allocated money for, seems to be a ship that is moving away from us in the night.
No, I wouldn't say that, like, to go from 60 to 90, the final bid plans is.
But I'll say this, a year ago, we told Sarah and that crew that they were gonna play baseball, they were gonna play whatever softball they were gonna play in 2024. This body did. Like, we were gonna have shovels in the ground in 2024.
And we still can have shovels in the ground in 2024. I mean.
So it's August 26th now, are they gonna build the field in the middle of winter? Because at 60%, we're still 40% away.
Yeah.
So there's still 2 stages of this process with REI.
But it's not, I don't know, I don't think it's as daunting as you maybe think. The majority of the work, getting the survey, getting the layout is the big part. Now it's the refinement, which will be, it's a quicker process. I mean, by the time we got the authority to send out the RFP for engineering services and awarded it, we're not, I mean, that was what, May, June, and we're in August, and we got 60% planned. So if you think of it that way, and we've made a lot of progress in not a lot of time.
Okay.
And getting that foundation, getting that base map done is really where the majority of the work comes in.
Okay, so then to be specific about calendar.
Yep.
So let's say that we get, REI gets to 100% by the time Parks meets again. Okay, so that's a month, so now we're at the end of September.
Yep.
Okay, so that gets approved by us at the end of September. Then if I'm understanding this right, the construction has to go out for bid. Okay, so that gets us to October. So then we approve this in October. Does that immediately that evening go to the trustees, or does that go to the trustees in November?
I don't know that you have to
Yeah.
approve the 3D drawing, you've approved the
But we
design.
approved the RFP, right? We're gonna put out,
If the 60, if we're to 100% before the next meeting, we can go out for bid and bring bids to next meeting, if we're to that point. We wouldn't need you to approve 100%
Right.
and then approve RFP.
but there is a process between putting out an RFP and this body approving an RFP, and then trustees approving that RFP, right?
So it's not an RFP, it's a bid. So
For a bid.
So you guys approved this plan, these drawings. So as long as what's being designed matches that, and we're not all of a sudden making changes, any other project in the village, we just go with, and then we bring the bids to the board for final approval, saying, hey, we bid it out and it's $500,000, everybody in agreement? Okay.
So then, again, I'd like to be more specific about that timeline. So how many months will it take for a bid to get to the board? Roughly, just an estimation. I know you can't tell me for sure.
I would think if we're on track, we could probably have it by October, the October board meeting. You can move dirt in winter. So, I mean, topsoil can be stripped, some of these things can be prepped. Like I said, the the fencing, the field can be done. It's the concrete, the paths, some retaining, I mean, there might be elements that have to wait, but if we just need to have a fence and a field for people to play on, I believe that can still be done before, by spring.
Just one question to piggyback on this. So I keep hearing about the baseball.
Yeah.
So from the hockey perspective, I know we were identified in phase one. One of the things that I'm struggling with is our quote for boards is $117,000, and there's just no way that that's realistic. That's way too much. I know I can get used boards, but it's gonna take months for that to happen. So in my own planning process, what are we looking for to actually have the rink ready to go?
So again, phase 1H, I guess we have the northwest corner and then the baseball field. So part of that is whenever the hockey organization would say, hey, we got our money or we're ready to do our part, I guess, then we put that bid package together and go with that northwest corner. So if that's more conversations we need to have on where you're at and the funding there, do that.
Okay.
But they are, same thing, the grading, the utilities, all that in that northwest corner are part of what REI is finishing up too. So as soon as you are saying, we're ready, we can do the ice hockey part. We'll have the plans ready, we'll know what elevations things need to be at, where the horizontal, offsets need to be. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts.
Thank you.
Yep.
I was gonna ask the same thing, because I see here it's also on phase one. Thank you for bringing that up. Any announcements? Do a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Trevino, second by Easker. Motion's been approved. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any more discussion?